This video is going to be a bit of a state of the union on the current reality of the housing market on the Sunshine Coast, both if you're buying or if you're looking to rent, and kind of what to expect and kind of our thoughts on it.
So we have a housing crisis on the coast. There's a committee put together. All the governments are talking about it. There is a housing crisis. So exactly what does that mean is that property values have skyrocketed in the last year, and there's a lot of shuffling and moving going around. So a lot of investors who have had rental properties are selling into this hot market. So then you have a lot of tenants being displaced and needing to find another place, but then they're not finding another place to rent. So there's a lot of tenants looking for places. And then there's just the very high cost of houses that the property values have went up.
You've got two things going on, I think, on the coast, is that there is the appreciation of the hot market that we're kind of seeing everywhere across North America, right? We're not immune to it here, we're getting it. But I think kind of hidden in that here is there's also a market correction going on. 5 years ago, you could have bought a new or next new condo here for under $400,000 with an ocean view and all the rest. That same property in Vancouver, the equivalent property in Vancouver, might have been 3 or 4 times that. And I think people were looking and thinking, man, I'm saving so much money. It's worth the trade-off to live in a small town, even before this big lust for living in a rural, small community hit the world at large.
Right.
So I think that we're seeing that market correction. And then on top of it, it's extra hot because the market is just hot in general.
And we don't have the foreign buyer tax here on the Sunshine Coast, like at Vancouver that got put in. And so there's less taxes for us here. And so then it is promoting investors coming and buying this in this area.
The fact of the matter is that if you're coming in and you're buying a house for $800,000, $900,000 or $1 million, what are you charging for rent?
So rents have gone up, and then tenants are complaining that rents are high. Well, the landlord needs that rent high to cover the mortgage that he has on that property.
That's right.
Has on that property. So yeah, it's not that they want to charge $1 zillion for rent. That's what the going rate is at. So it's a housing crisis.
And not even the going rate. It's just a lot of times if you're getting financing on a rental property, you have to show the bank that it makes money.
Yeah.
And for you to be able to buy the property, you need to say, yeah, I'll get X amount of rent for it, and that you don't really have a choice. It's not that the bank is telling you you've got to charge, $3,000 a month, but just the formula that the bank gives you to say whether or not you can buy it dictates that you need to take $3,000 a month. So while prices have gone up, rents have gone up, wages haven't gone up for people. So yeah, tenants are in a really, really bad spot. They're just getting really beat to death in the housing market right now because we're inundated with people moving from Vancouver that want to live here and hoovering up that rental space. And when they're displaced, like Val said, and they're looking for someplace else, they were paying $1,500 a month someplace, and all of a sudden it's $2,500 a month, which is a huge jump in a short period of time.
Especially when they could barely get by on that other rent that they didn't realize was low at the time, and now it's just astronomical.
A lot of times when somebody's relocating to a new area, the thought is, I'll rent for a year or 2 years and see if I like it.
And that's a good plan.
A really good plan. 2 things are working against you right now is that you just can't find anything to rent, period. Even if you've got the money, it's really hard to find something to rent. And that if you do end up renting, the pace at which the market is moving, you're just pricing yourself out of the market if you don't buy right away when you come.
Yeah.
Is it going to last? Is the market going to stay hot for another 6 months or a year, 5 years? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But that's the risk you're taking when you come. If you say, okay, I'm going to rent for a year or 2 years, you're crossing your fingers that the market loses some of its steam, or else you're going to be priced out.
Yeah. So like in our complex, for example, there's 20 different units, townhouse units and standalone homes that are all part of this complex. And in the last few months, 5 have sold, and they basically sold like first day on the market or like 5 days on the market. Because the only reason it's 5 days on the market is because the realtor will hold on to the property and won't accept offers until 5 days in, and just get a whole bunch of competing offers. And out of those 5 that sold, 3 were rentals. And so now those 3 people got displaced and had to go find another place. And the one lady was letting me know that she did find another place to rent, but she was one of 40 people who applied for that place. And so then she got it because she was a single elderly lady. Not that you don't want to rent to families and people with pets and that, but it's just like for a landlord, it's like, oh, this is the least wear and tear on my property. So then.
Well, and guaranteed income.
Yeah.
You're on a pension, right? You don't have to worry about her losing her job.
Yeah.
Any of it. You know that you can kind of just put her in the property and forget about her. So when you've got 40 applicants in front of you, you pick the one that you're most sure is going to pay you and that you feel most comfortable is going to put the least amount of wear and tear on the suite.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't find yourself in that category, you have some stiff competition. And we're even hearing stories about landlords having open houses that you can come for viewings for the properties. And that when tenants or would-be tenants go to see the properties, they're saying, oh, you want $2,000 a month, landlord? I'll give you $2,200 if you'll rent it to me right now. Yeah. I'm ready to take it. So even renters are bidding up prices on rents. Mm-hmm. So it is cuckoo crazy time right now if you're looking to move out here.
Yes. And so like even like public servant, if you're even working for the local governments or the town or your town staff, even they like might have a position or a listing come up for employment, but they can't fill it because the person coming doesn't have a home or can't find a place to stay. So there is a little bit of problem with that. Or you have renters that had a job, but then they have to leave because then they've been displaced and they don't have a home that they can find anymore. So then they have to move off coast, even though they had a job.
What fixes this, I think, is more properties. If you're going to add property to the market, you're going to have to build properties. And you know, and I know that you can put up a house pretty quick, but you're not doing it in days. Like it's going to take months and months and years for this to get caught up. Mm-hmm. And the way that demand is right now is I don't know if I think it'll have to get better at some point, but I don't think it'll ever be a balanced market. Like I don't think you could build houses fast enough to meet demand right now.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's a really tough situation. And even because you say, okay, well, build a whole bunch of houses, bring in the workers. Well, where are those workers staying?
Yeah.
And you could basically do fields of like fifth wheel parks, trailer parks of people working work camps. And then there's all these rules and regulation with the district, the where you can park an RV and live basically on a lot, whether you can, it's zone that you can, and whether it's like approved to live in, like what do you call that? I don't know. It has to be like an approved dwelling. And so then there's all these rules. But the truth is, I think the district will turn a blind eye because they know there's a housing problem. So if you own like 2 acres of land right now and you have a home and you tell somebody come park on the land, you can get away with it. You can have that.
Yeah, I do think that if the district started cracking down on illegal suites or tiny homes or RVs where they're not supposed to be, it would be bedlam.
No, it's more important for them to deal with the housing crisis. So they're not going to tell people you can't stay in the trailer on this land, on this location. They're not. Not
that we're suggesting that you follow that course.
Yeah, don't listen to me.
Yeah, but that I think that's the reality of what's happening right now. And yeah, outside of supply, I don't know what fixes it. You know, the opposite of supply is a drop in demand, and I don't know what would lead to the drop in demand.
The other factor that might have affected the supply in the market is that you've had homeowners who have had a long-term rental in the suite that they've decided to turn that suite from a long-term rental to an Airbnb because there's this, before COVID, but still kind of now, you just make a lot more money with Airbnb than a long-term renter. And so that has displaced a lot of tenants.
Well, and I think if we're honest, I think the perception in BC is that with a vacation rental, you'll make way more money for way less aggravation. There's a lot of really, really good tenants out there that respect properties and pay rent on time and all the rest. It's not those stories that would-be landlords hear. The would-be landlords hear, oh, this tenant ruined the place, or it was a grow op, or all these different horror stories. And when you're faced with that, even if that's like the 1 in 100 that happens, you hear, oh, okay, well, I can put a rental in there, a vacation rental in my property, and I'm going to get twice or 3 times what it would have got otherwise. And I don't have to deal with those problems because it's easy to tell that person to leave.
Well, being a landlord in BC is hard because the rules are very much skewed towards the tenant. And so then even if the landlord does want to protect their property or wants decent return, or and even if the tenant's not paying, there's a lot more opportunity for the tenant to string the landlord along and not pay, and then the landlord is stuck with this property with a tenant that they can't get rid of, and they're not getting paid.
I think tenants would probably argue with you that the laws are skewed towards the landlord. This is, I think, part of a bigger discussion that we can't fix right now. But I do think something that would address the situation would be a tenancy law with more teeth that protected the good tenants from the bad landlords that we all agree exist,
Yeah.
but that it also protects the good landlords from the bad tenants.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it goes both ways right now.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, there are landlords that abuse the system, but there are tenants that abuse the hell out of it too. That abuse at both extremes has to be removed. And until you do that, the people with money just are going to say, I'll buy an investment property in Alberta or someplace where I don't have to deal with this, that if somebody doesn't pay rent, I can evict them. If they just say they're going to destroy the place, I can evict them. That it's not this months long ordeal to get control of your property back. I think to say we're going to punish landlords or punish tenants for bad behavior, I think is good. But at the same time, I think we want to say we're going to reward people for good behavior. And if you want to get supply into the market, 3 ways you could do that.
Let's hear the 3 ways.
Is you could, at a federal level, if you're a mom and pop landlord, the federal government could say there's no capital gains tax. If you have a residential property for 1 or 2 or 3, like a small number of residential units.
A small number I can understand.
And not an apartment building, nothing like that. It would have to be like a house, a condo, something like that. You wouldn't have to pay capital gains on it. And what that allows you to do is that if the property doesn't cash flow, if you're the landlord, you think, well, this maybe works because it's going to appreciate. And so basically the no capital gains tax subsidizes the rent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you couldn't ask for high enough rent at the time for what you paid for that home.
That's right.
But then you know that the property will appreciate over time and you'll make your money that way.
That's right. So if it's costing you $500 to $1,000 a month to carry it, and you think, well, okay, I'm going to own this for 3 or 4 years, and that's going to be, $50,000. But over that period of time, the property is going to appreciate by $200,000. Then maybe that's an investment I want to make.
Well, and the good thing about that is that if a person is in the position to be able to buy a property and put a tenant in and provide that housing, then that is good. And then that home is not empty, because there's some tenants who can't afford to buy. Like there will always be that need for housing for tenants who can't afford to buy a home.
The next thing that I think could be fixed, add more supply pretty much instantly to the market, would be to allow strata owners, condo owners to rent out their suites. But in BC, stratas can decide that they don't want to have tenants, they don't want to have renters in their complex. I think provincially, the government could just undo that with a stroke of the pen, and you would have a lot of properties that you could put people in to rentals.
I don't know if I like this one. It makes sense, but obviously we live in a complex, and we were tenants. We were great tenants. So to say that we wouldn't have wanted us as a neighbor would have been ridiculous.
and we were in Edmonton, we were landlords, and we had really good tenants.
Yeah.
That's it. So I got no heartache with that. If you couple that with a stronger tenancy law, and as quickly as it takes a majority government that the NDP has right now to say that we're going to fix this and we're going to add, I think you would probably add tens of thousands of units provincially to the market if you did it, and you could do it overnight.
Yeah, because some places are sitting empty because they can't rent it out.
Yeah. So that you can do that. And then here at a municipal level, well, not just here municipally, but I think that what our town could affect is you should have a grant for people that want to add a secondary suite or a laneway home or a garage suite or something like that. I think what I would do is I would say that if you're a developer that wants to build in the area, I'm going to put a pretty big tax on you of thousands of dollars, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per unit, that the town is going to stick into their pocket, and they're going to set it aside for affordable housing. And once that builds a little bit, then when a homeowner comes and says, I want to build a laneway home, or I want to put a secondary suite in my home, then the town would have a program that says, okay, well, we've got 10,000 or 20,000 or 40,000 or whatever the amount is that they think is necessary. And we will give you that money to build this suite at your home. The strings that come with it is that it needs to be a residential unit, and it needs to be rented at below market rate, at which we will dictate what market rate is, the we being the town. And that if you take that money and you add that secondary suite, then you're committed to having it for, 5 years, 10 years, or something like that, right?
And if you don't have it for that long as a rental suite, then you have to pay back that grant.
That's right. To make the numbers real easy, the town says they'll give you up to $50,000 to build a laneway house at your home, and it has to be below market rent for 5 years. And then in the 3rd year, you decide I'm moving and this is not working for me, then you would owe the town $20,000.
Yep.
I don't think that the solution is for a town to take on that responsibility and say, oh, it's for us to build apartment buildings, it's for us to build houses, and it's for us to be landlords. Like as a town,
Right.
I don't think that's our job. The town's job is to make sure that the town functions.
Yeah.
That's it. And then to create the scenario that allows businesses to succeed, people to want to invest, and landlords to want to build affordable housing. If I was an ad supply, that's how I would do it. Not running for anything. I don't want emails that say, oh, you can't do that because of this rule. I'm just spitballing here. That's how I would fix it.
If you have a goal or plan to move somewhere to BC or anywhere else, then yeah, it's just a reminder to check out the housing situation in that spot that you're looking at moving, and what kind of planning you have to do, because you don't want to just show up and then be surprised and have a moving van and be like, I have nowhere to stay, and then you just got to turn around. So definitely plan the housing situation ahead of time before you decide to move. There you go.
There, that's a nice depressing video about life on the Sunshine Coast. Yeah, if you have another sad subject you want us to discuss, leave a note in the comments and we can bring that up, and I'll have a good cry there next time too in another upcoming episode. And let us know if you have questions about housing market, and if you have a thought on how you would fix a housing shortage that it's really pronounced right here, but I think people all over the country are hurting with it right now. If you're a homeowner, it's a good time to be a homeowner. If you're a renter, I don't think life's nearly as good.
That's that. Take care, guys. We'll see you in the next video.